I wouldn't say that I am a fan of electric cars, but ever since the government decided they were going to force it on us, I figured maybe let's give them a chance. But my main area of concern is pickup trucks and heavy equipment, because that is what I know and it's kind of what I do for a living. I don't know if I've ever really mentioned it on this channel, but I do construction for a living as of right now, and we tow a lot of heavy shit with normal pickups, and we also run some heavy equipment. So, electric trucks and electric heavy equipment. Yeah. Now, before we really get into that topic, I just want to mention it's like 90% of people that watch my videos aren't subscribed. So, make sure you subscribe. Please. It helps a lot, actually. We want to make it to 1,000 subscribers. So, let's do that. Hopefully we can make that happen. Now, like I was saying, heavy equipment. Might sound weird to think of like an excavator or something not running on diesel, but heavy equipment has already been hit by some restrictions. If you don't know, a lot of heavy equipment nowadays has a DEF system and full EGR everything. It kind of sucks, but it's just kind of the reality of where we're at. Now, I'm not saying to delete these diesels, but they're pretty easy to delete and nobody's gonna check. There's no inspections. No inspections on heavy equipment. And for a long time, the heavy equipment was exempt from these emissions. So seeing them now become emissions regulated, that does mean that if the EPA is willing to ban gas cars and diesel trucks, then that means they're probably going to come for the heavy equipment as well. Even if it's like 10 to 15 years behind of the restrictions on the cars, it's going to happen eventually. Hopefully not, but I'm sure it will. Now, I think a look ahead into the heavy equipment world when it does eventually get regulated is the new electric pickups. I think it's pretty well known in the truck community, but maybe not in the general car world. But the first engine that came in the Cummins trucks, the 6BT Cummins 5.9 12 valve, everybody knows the 12 valve, was actually put in a shit ton of heavy equipment as well. Pretty sure our company actually has a excavator with a 6BT Cummins in it. Like, we're talking pulleys to bell housing are basically the same freaking thing. And the reason we're talking about that is because Chevy just released a new electric truck, and it's not really that bad. And over at Equipment World, they actually just did a review on the new Chevy pickup, and if anybody's qualified to give it a honest work review, I would say it's probably them. But first, I'm going to break down all the specs on this thing, my concerns, so on and so forth. First of all, this thing is offered with a 450 mile range, which might sound like a lot, but when you're pulling heavy or you're got the AC or heat blasting all day long, I could imagine that is gonna drop down pretty quickly. And with one of the big draws of the electric cars is that you can just charge them at home overnight. So I'm hoping that it being a 450 mile range, you will make it to the end of the day. Like that, it's a lot of miles. Like, yeah. And it's technically in the 1500 half-ton pickup class, so you're not going to be, I mean, I guess you could, but you're not going to be like hot-shotting this thing, so your range isn't really going to matter in that sense. Now, with the big range in electric vehicles, that comes with big weight. This thing weighs 8,000 pounds, which, like I said before, this is a 1500 half-ton class pickup, and it weighs as much as a Ram 3500. That is ridiculous. And coming in at the weight of a Ram 3500 and your towing capacity is only 10,000 pounds, it's not great. Just to compare, that is a quarter of the Ram 3500's towing capacity is 10,000 pounds. Now, most people with 1500 class pickups aren't really looking to tow all the time, so take it as you see it, I guess. Now, one thing I do think is kind of cool, since it's electric, it has a frunk, which is the trunk on the front. Personally, I think is actually freaking awesome. As someone that's been driving trucks pretty much my entire time driving, having extra enclosed space like that would be so nice. If you're not in the construction world, you seriously do not know the pain of you own a mega cab truck and the entire back seat is full of power tools, lasers, levels, like just all this shit you don't want to get either stolen or leave out in the rain. It'd be super sweet to have extra space somewhere that is just water sealed. Oh my gosh, it'd be so nice. So far, I think Chevy is actually doing an amazing job with this. And over at Equipment World, they agreed. They said the thing towed perfectly. I think it was a John Deere tractor they were pulling. It was actually supposedly pulling great. So for a 1500 class pickup, that is pretty sweet. And they said it rode nice and everything and what have you. So I'm taking their word for it, but I'm pretty impressed with it for what has come out with electric trucks. Now, this is just one of them, and they haven't been on the road long, so we don't know anything about them yet, really. I mean, we have like a day's worth of driving review. We don't have that year-long review or even that 1 month review, because that is where you really find the little things in these vehicles that you don't like. And for Chevy's first try at trying to make an electric truck, that was actually pretty damn good, considering what the other American car company tried to do. Now, what I'm talking about is something you've probably already heard of, but we're going to talk about it anyway, and that is the nightmare that is the Ford Lightning. First of all, we got to talk about it. Ford has been so out of touch with their cars lately, like killing all of the ST or whatever. I think they killed all the ST and RS cars. So there goes anything fun. And then making the Mustang an SUV and then also keeping the Mustang sports car. Like, I mean, literally, like, racking my brain here. The only thing that has been impressive out of Ford lately is the Bronco, and it had a bunch of problems. On release, the Bronco, like the full-size one, they had shitty, weak tie rods, and they were breaking out on trails because people were doing what they advertised, and they had like a 6-month wait on them. It was just like, Ford, what are you doing? And also, like, the real Mustang that's out there, making that have a 4-cylinder option is so dumb when you had the 3.5 liter EcoBoost. Even though it has its problems, and there are a lot of them, just like, come on, guys. Like, why make it a 4-cylinder? This all came to a point last year with the aforementioned pickup truck release. Other than that clip of President Biden test driving the truck, that's the only good reaction I saw to the thing.
This sucker's quick.
It kind of falls apart when you use it as a truck, and considering it as a truck, that is mildly important. Now, over at Hoovie's Garage, which if you haven't seen that video, it is a must watch, he tries to pull an empty aluminum trailer with his brand new Ford Lightning, and it quickly becomes a shit show. When he originally left his place to go to the shop to pick up a car with this empty trailer, as I mentioned, it was only 32 miles. And pulling out of his neighborhood, the rate that the range was dropping was double what it was saying. And the pace kept up the entire way there, with his 200-mile range dwindling down to about 130 miles by the end of it. So this is a 32-mile trip, and it uses 70 miles of range with an empty aluminum trailer. How that's even possible is just astounding to me. When it was loaded down on its way home with a Model A Ford, which is like not even it's 2,500-ish pounds. The rate that the range dropped was triple now. So by the time he got back to his house, once again 32 miles, he had used 90 miles of range. And this is him just trying to use it as a truck. So if you kind of do some mental math on this, you're using this as a truck. You have your trailer. You put a thing on this trailer. It would take an hour to run through your entire range at highway speeds. An hour. And Hoovy stated that it takes about 45 minutes to fully charge back up to 200 miles. So every hour, to go 60 miles, you'd have to stop to refill back up to your 200 mile range. But he did mention that it actually towed amazingly he did actually say that when it was towing, despite the range issue, it was towing perfectly. He even said that he didn't even feel like the trailer was behind him even when loaded. And this is where we kind of see what the real problem with electric cars is. As a concept, just as the motors work, it will pull way harder than a diesel or a gas engine. And it will also be able to use the regenerative braking to slow down faster. So you could combo the brakes with the regenerative braking, and it's like basically a Jake brake. So it should be amazing, but where it all falls apart is our current battery technology. Like I mentioned before, in that Silverado with 450 miles, if you compare it to a standard Silverado 1500, it adds up to 5,000 pounds, or on the low end, 3,000 pounds extra weight in just batteries, just to get that 450 mile range I mentioned. And that does take away from your overall towing weight. So considering that Chevy tends to make a better product than Ford anyway, let's just say maybe it declines at the same rate as the Lightning did, which I highly doubt. You'd get 2 hours of highway speeds until you have to recharge, I guess. I mean, and if it's 450 miles, it'd probably take maybe an hour to an hour and a half to recharge that. So, I mean, think of a 3-hour trip. That would end up being a 4-hour trip to a 4.5-hour trip just to add in charge time. I do think there is a little bit of hope here though, because if you look not too far in the past, battery technology was dog shit compared to where it is now. Chevy tried to make a electric car in the 90s for fleets, like pretty much what this truck is designed to be, and its range was only 55 miles. And this was just using like normal lead acid batteries, like a deep cycle marine battery. And here we are 20 years later, and we have 450 miles of range. So things have improved drastically. And I think they will be going better and better as we move on, hopefully anyway. If you consider the fact that the Model T was released in 1908, then like 30 to 40 years later, they were already hopping these things up. I think if that timeline works out, we're probably in the very early stages of like the hot rod era. And I think we're really going to have to step on the gas pedal as far as advancements in batteries because of the government forcing this on us. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Current internal combustion engines are so clean that the projected rate of climate change with modern cars is like, it was like 0.0001% or something like that. So I really don't think this mandating is required, but it's not up to me to decide that. So yeah, I'm not really supposed to talk about that on YouTube, I don't think. Anyways, as always, I'd like to know your guys' opinions on the new Chevy electric truck. I hope to do a more in-depth review. Maybe I can drive one. That'd be cool. To me, this seems like this first version is more like a fleet truck, like for cable companies, power companies, stuff like that, if that makes sense. 90% of the time, those guys aren't towing. So it'll probably end up working out, and hopefully charging isn't an issue when there's an entire fleet of electric trucks in town. Who knows? Yeah, put it in the comments down below what you think of this. I'm sure you guys are probably in the same boat as me, but if you disagree with me, I'd like to know. But this is definitely a step in the right direction, considering what Ford released compared to this truck. Man, the Ford Lightning just sucked. Like, how that got past R&D is just amazing to me. How did you not tow with it, like, once? That's just amazing to me. Like, you make a truck that is designed to tow things, and you, like, did you not test it, or did you just test it and hope nobody would notice? Like, mind-boggling. Anyway, so that is everything for today. So make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on anything that drives.